Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to the preview for this weekend's 2021 Styrian Grand Prix from, of course, the Red Bull Ring, the Styrian Mountains. That's what has the name the Styrian Grand Prix for this weekend. Of course, weekend after, it will have its natural name, the Austrian Grand Prix, of course, at the same track at the Red Bull Ring. After, of course, as well, this Grand Prix taking place only, 3 or 4 days after the French Grand Prix. A very exciting Grand Prix weekend we had in France, something we were not expecting at all. I think the results definitely we got in the races, definitely not what we were expecting coming into that weekend. And given how unpredictable it was in certain parts of the field, I think definitely for this Grand Prix this weekend and the Grand Prix next weekend, of course, at the same circuit, the Red Bull Ring, it's going to be very hard to predict what's going to happen this weekend, especially with the lap in or at the Red Bull Ring being so small, because of course that then shortens the gaps that there normally would be between the cars in terms of car performance that you would get, say, if we were at, again, Paul Ricard or say Bahrain, tracks like that where it's 25 to 30 seconds longer around those particular circuits. So I think this weekend definitely, and next weekend, again, definitely in qualifying, it's going to be so close. I reckon the top 5 will probably in qualifying be separated by 2 to 3 tenths of a second. Probably the top 10 will be covered by definitely less than a second, maybe say 6 to 7 tenths of a second at most. Again, going to be very close this weekend, and even though normally coming into these previews, we'll go on about how it's going to be Red Bull, Mercedes up top. Yes, they are the 2 strongest teams, and you would still expect them to be right up the top. But, again, because of the nature of the circuit and how quick the lap is, I think definitely, at least in qualifying, you'll have McLaren, Ferrari, AlphaTauri, Alpine, Aston Martin able really to get right in there and cause some real surprises. So I cannot wait for this weekend. Firstly, again, the Styrian Grand Prix before we get to the Austrian Grand Prix in a week's time. Just want to say though, guys, hopefully you're having a good day so far on what is a I wouldn't say hot, but nice and sunny late Thursday afternoon for me here in the UK, or early Thursday evening. And you're hopefully, from no matter what part of the world you're from, hopefully you are having as best a day as you can possibly have. But before I get into the teams and how I believe they'll do, let's first go through the championship standings. So coming into this Grand Prix where, as I'll get on to in a moment, Max Verstappen and Red Bull are definitely the favourites because of their record around the Red Bull Ring. And of course, it is their home Grand Prix. Max Verstappen coming into this race also in a very good position in the Drivers' Championship, leading by 12 points from Lewis Hamilton. Still very close. Still, if, say Verstappen was to retire from the race this weekend, it could still massively change around. Or if Hamilton was to have an issue, again, is that close that if just one big thing happens to one of Verstappen or Hamilton, that it could massively have an effect on the championship, which of course is great to see. Sergio Perez is 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. Lando Norris is 4th, just 8 points behind. Valtteri Bottas climbed up to 5th after the race in France. And then, let me just pull it down here. So you can see Charles Leclerc in 6th, Carlos Sainz 7th. Of course, Ferrari did not score any points in France, and I'm not sure, as we'll get on to later, I'm not sure their chances are going to be that great here this weekend, as I'll get on to in a few moments' time. And then you have Pierre Gasly in 8th, Daniel Ricciardo climbing up to 9th because of his great 6th place finish in France. Probably his best drive of the season so far, and his best drive for McLaren and his career at McLaren as well. And then Sebastian Vettel in 10th. Still though, Vettel did score a couple points for the Aston Martin team. And then the constructors' standings, Red Bull are leading the Constructors' Championship by 37 points from Mercedes. So they've got a good, healthy lead at the moment. And you would think that after the 2 races coming up at the Red Bull Ring this weekend and next weekend, you would think that Red Bull are going to pull out an even bigger gap over Mercedes by the end of the next 2 races. McLaren, of course, are up to 3rd after their great result in France, and Ferrari down to 4th after, again, not scoring a single point in France. And then AlphaTauri are still in 5th. Aston Martin are 6th, Alpine are 7th, and Alfa Romeo 8th. Williams have climbed back up to 9th because of George Russell's great drive to P12 in France. And then Haas, of course, back down into last place in the Constructors' Championship. But let's get into the top 2 teams, Mercedes and Red Bull, who, of course, are contending for this year's World Drivers and Constructors' Championships. Now, I think on the driver's side, I think without doubt Red Bull, again, on the driver's side of things, will be the favourites here because Lewis Hamilton has, had, I think 2 race wins here in Austria before. It's not like he's poor around here, but if you compare his performance here to other circuits on the calendar we normally go to, this does tend to be one of Lewis's weaker tracks. Compared to Rosberg, he wasn't, I would say, as good, because Rosberg, I think, won 2 of the 3 races between 2014 and the end of 2016 here in Austria. And then Valtteri Bottas has also, compared to Lewis Hamilton, certainly in qualifying, has had a great record compared, again, to Lewis Hamilton. I think Valtteri Bottas has outqualified Lewis Hamilton at every race here at the Red Bull Ring, except for the Styrian Grand Prix qualifying, the wet qualifying of about a year ago. So, again, it's not a track where you would expect Lewis Hamilton to be at his best. I think we'll definitely get that probably at Silverstone and the Hungaroring, which, of course, are the final 2 races on the calendar before the all-important summer break. So, I think, again, this weekend and next weekend, if it's a dry weekend, I just don't see Lewis Hamilton really coming out on top. I just don't see it at all. I think this Grand Prix, given the momentum behind Max Verstappen and Red Bull coming from the French Grand Prix, I just see Verstappen and Red Bull bouncing straight into this Grand Prix and being the top dogs without doubt. And I think the only thing for Hamilton that you could probably hope for is that Verstappen and Red Bull have some kind of issue in this weekend's race, and then Hamilton, gains a load of points on Verstappen and possibly regains the lead of the championship. And then going into the Austrian Grand Prix next weekend, and at least Lewis Hamilton would then have the momentum behind him rather than it being with Max Verstappen. But as long as Verstappen keeps outperforming Hamilton in terms of, who literally just finishes ahead in the races, because of these 2 races coming up, I just don't see how Lewis Hamilton, given his previous record at the Red Bull Ring, I just don't see how he this weekend especially is going to, get pole position and win the race. I just don't see it at all. And I think, honestly, he'll do well to get on the front row. Because like I said, Valtteri Bottas has outqualified Hamilton here in Austria in 2017, 2018, 2019. Hamilton did, I think, get a penalty in 2019. But Bottas started ahead. So maybe you could say Hamilton outqualified him there. But then in 2020, Bottas outqualified Hamilton one of the 2 Austrian races, and of course won that race he outqualified Hamilton in. So again, this is not a circuit where we're really expecting Hamilton to bounce back. I think going into the race at Paul Ricard, we were definitely expecting that, and it easily could have been the case that Hamilton, won that race, because as we saw last Sunday, Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes had plenty of chances to win the race. They got into the lead, looked comfortable, and then Verstappen did a great job with the undercut, and then Hamilton still, had his chances to get back ahead of Verstappen on track, and then, unfortunately for them, they didn't quite have a strong enough defence against Max Verstappen once Verstappen pitted for a second time on to that medium compound of tyre. So I just think, yeah, this weekend, I think Hamilton is going to struggle a bit. I think his best hope is second or third. But honestly, given the competition I think we'll have definitely in those top 10 positions this weekend, he's going to have quite a fight on his hands just to finish in the top 3 in qualifying. Because again, Verstappen will be very quick. Bottas normally out-qualifies Hamilton in Austria. Charles Leclerc is very strong here, as we've seen in the last couple of years. Lando Norris is very strong here. In the McLaren, of course, we've seen it in qualifying especially during this season that Lando, when he does get it together, he does have some very, very good pace. So I'm sure he'll be up there. Of course, Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri that should be well suited to the Red Bull Ring layout. So, again, difficult to see Hamilton really responding and bouncing back in the championship this weekend, unless Verstappen has some kind of big issue, which does allow then Lewis Hamilton to gain points on Max Verstappen. For Valtteri Bottas, I do think he will be the highest placed Mercedes, definitely in qualifying. Not sure about the race, because I think the race is going to be very similar to the race at Paul Ricard, where it's very closely contested in all parts of the grid, and I don't think it's going to be really settled until the final 2 or 3 laps, which definitely in Austria we have gotten used to. So we'll see in the race. I think it'll be very close. I think Hamilton definitely has a good chance to still beat Bottas in the race, but definitely I think in qualifying Valtteri will get ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So I think he will be the highest placed Mercedes, and hopefully for Mercedes he will be on pole position. But like I said with Red Bull and Verstappen, and I'll get onto them now. With Verstappen in the form he's in currently, and the form that Red Bull are in, winning the last 3 Grand Prix, and also given that they, as of the last Grand Prix, put in a fresh new Honda power unit, and it really did prove to be probably the difference, I guess you could say, at Paul Ricard, definitely in the race, at getting the overtakes done when Verstappen needed to, and also for Perez as well. Again, with that new, fresh Honda power unit in, and the strengths of the Red Bull car at, say, circuits like this, where it's a lot of power-dominant sectors, very similar to Bahrain, is the Red Bull Ring. So I think, again, Red Bull and Max Verstappen, without doubt, clear favourites. We've seen basically in every Grand Prix here since 2018 that Max Verstappen has been either at his best and got, say, the race win or the best result he could, or there's been times where he's not quite got the best result he could because of reasons really outside of himself, more so down to the car. So I think without doubt, Max Verstappen is the favourite, and I do think Max Verstappen will get pole position, and I do think he will win the Styrian Grand Prix. When it comes to the second race in Austria, it should be Verstappen, pole and victory again, but I'm not going to say that yet because I want to see how this first race goes and see whether Red Bull and Verstappen as a package are as good as I think they will be. Also, Sergio Perez. I don't think Perez will be in the top 3 or 4 in qualifying. I think he'll probably qualify, say, 6th or 7th on the grid. But I think definitely in the race, because of the pace of the Red Bull down the straights and because of Sergio Perez's race pace, I do think Perez will definitely finish on the podium in the Grand Prix. Because, again, the pace will be there. And look how strong he was in the Styrian Grand Prix, for example, of 2020. Where he came from, was it 17th on the grid? And he should have finished in 4th place if it wasn't for clumsy contact with Alex Albon. So the pace is there for Perez. It absolutely is. The pace is there. And I think as long as he can qualify on the, say, first 3 rows of the grid, then I think Perez will be absolutely fine for the race, and I think will definitely be a force to be reckoned with for the other drivers not named Max Verstappen fighting in that part of the field. But yeah, Red Bull going to be very strong this weekend, and I'd be very surprised if they did not have the strongest package, I guess you would say, for victory this weekend in Austria. Before, though, we get on to your comments in the live chat, let me just quickly go into the two most prestigious, I guess you could say, midfield teams for 2021, Ferrari and McLaren. Teams that, though, I don't think are really going to be midfield teams this weekend compared to, say, the top teams in Formula 1. Because, again, very short lap. I think in qualifying it'll be very close between Ferrari and McLaren and Mercedes and Red Bull. I think the drivers definitely of Ferrari and McLaren are going to have to make a real difference, and they normally do when it comes to how good they do at certain Grand Prix, especially Grand Prix like this. So I think definitely Charles Leclerc will be right up there. I think Leclerc's definitely going to qualify in the top 5 for this Grand Prix. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he was in the top 3, to be honest. I'd be very surprised if he got pole position. He has, of course, got it here before, but he had a much stronger car then, and a car that was a lot better suited to the Red Bull ring back in 2019. So I'd be surprised if he got pole position this weekend, but I do think he will get in the top 5. Wouldn't be, again, surprised if he got, say, 3rd in qualifying. And for Carlos Sainz, I think Sainz will be in the top 10, but I don't think he'll be right up there with his teammate, because if you look at Carlos's record around the Red Bull ring, it's not bad, but it's not anything special. It's kind of a mixed bag, if you will. Some qualifying sessions he can do well, but then the race doesn't quite turn out to be what he wants, and then vice versa the other way round. And I guess that's what we're going to see probably from Carlos Sainz this weekend, is maybe not too good in qualifying, but in the race he'll come alive and then get a good result. Or the same thing will happen for him and Ferrari that happened in France, where they had a good qualifying and then just fell back dramatically in the race due to poor tyre wear and also poor straight line speed, which I think is the most likely thing that's going to happen for Sainz this weekend, honestly, in the Ferrari, and also for Charles Leclerc. I think definitely in qualifying, Ferrari will get both cars into the top 10. And then, say, at best in qualifying, 3rd and 7th, something like that, or 6th at best for Carlos Sainz as a second Ferrari. But without doubt, in the race, they will drop back a lot. I think, let's say if they were to out-qualify the two McLarens, I think the two McLarens would definitely beat them in the Grand Prix, because the McLaren looks after its tyres better, has better race pace in general, and a lot quicker in a straight line, which, again, for the Red Bull Ring track, very, very important, especially with the DRS open. You also have the AlphaTauris, again, very quick in a straight line. Also Aston Martin, who are very quick on race day, and again, very quick in a straight line. So even though I think Ferrari are going to be good in qualifying, I don't think it will actually end up meaning anything for the Grand Prix. They need to pray for rain, basically, if they're going to do anything in the Grand Prix properly meaningful for their season. Because I think if it's a dry qualifying and a dry race, all I see is, again, a good qualifying, and then in the race, just being overtaken repeatedly with DRS by Norris, Ricciardo, Perez, Gasly, Tsunoda possibly, Vettel, Stroll, so on and so forth. I think they probably will get a points finish this time, but it's not going to be a top 6 finish without doubt in the race. But in qualifying, the pace will be there, I think, for the team. And for McLaren, who are now back up to 3rd in the Constructors, I think they come into this weekend buoyant, for sure. Because, of course, the last time they raced here a year ago, they got a podium with Lando Norris, and then in the second race, they got, I think, 5th place with Norris, and then the fastest lap of the race with Carlos Sainz. So it was a pretty good Grand Prix for them last year, So I think McLaren, again, without doubt, with the strengths of their car, they'll be looking forward to this Grand Prix. I think Lando Norris, without doubt, will be in the top, say, 7 on the grid. Don't know where exactly, but I think top 7 on the grid. Daniel Ricciardo, I do think will struggle in qualifying, because if you look at his record in qualifying around the Red Bull Ring, it's never really been good, ever. So I do think he will struggle in qualifying, Ricciardo, but because of his better pace, I would say, in the race, and also the team's better race pace compared to qualifying, I think he'll come through and score some good points for the team. Maybe in a similar way to what he did in France. Yeah, McLaren definitely are going to be getting another good result this weekend. I think definitely outscore Ferrari this weekend, as long as they don't have, a major issue in the race that means they lose, a load of points. And yeah, McLaren, I'd say between now and probably the summer break, you would look at the races coming up, and you would think that McLaren are probably going to end up in third in the constructors by the time we get to the summer break. Because again, these 2 races at the Red Bull Ring, I'd be very surprised if McLaren did not beat Ferrari in both of them. And then Silverstone, it'll be close at Silverstone, but I think McLaren will probably take it. And then Hungary, I think maybe Ferrari will edge it there, certainly in the race, but McLaren will still be pretty strong there as well. So we'll see, but I think McLaren are in a very good position at the moment, without doubt. And that result in France, I think I said it in my race watch along, that result, 5th and 6th, that might be one of those results at the end of the season they look back on and think, yeah, that was a result that was a massive part of why we finished in the top 3 in the Constructors' Championship. And hopefully, from their point of view, it does turn out to be that way. But before I go on to the rest of the teams, guys, and how they will do, let me know right now in the comments section down below and the live chat on the side of the screen. Let me know, for the top 4 teams, how do you think they'll perform? Who do you think is likely to be, strong here? Who do you think, out of, say, the Ferrari and McLaren drivers, even maybe the Aston Martin or AlphaTauri drivers, who do you think out of them could maybe cause a surprise, certainly in qualifying, because again, of how close we expect it to be with the very short lap we have here. So again, let me know in the chat, and I'll try to read out some comments before we go on to the rest of the teams. Just want to say, though, to remind you guys, I will be live twice on Saturday for the Practice 3 and Qualifying Watch-Along, and then, of course, live 3 times on Sunday for the race preview, the race watch-along, and the race review. If you want to find out the times for those streams, I will let you guys know at the end of this stream. It is basically, or it is, I think, the same as the Grand Prix we just had in France, but if you guys want to know for absolute sure, then just stick around to the end of the stream, and I'll let you guys know the exact timings of when I will start my streams. Well, not in, but for the Grand Prix streams this weekend. And again, like I said, don't forget to come along to those streams, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you're notified as to when I go live this weekend for the Styrian Grand Prix, the 8th Grand Prix, of course, of 2021. Don't forget to subscribe on the bottom right of the screen, or just go to my channel page and do it then, hit the notifications bell, and also smash a like button, share this video and channel everywhere you can. That would really be appreciated. Anyway, we'll read out, I think, a few comments, and then we'll get onto the rest of the teams. Mika says Ferrari cannot manage tyres. They need a wet race here. They absolutely do. JB says, I think Ferrari will be a lot better than a lot of people expect. I expect them to both be top 8. Austria, however, when they go one stop softer, Ferrari will struggle like in France. I think without doubt, like I said, in qualifying, I think Ferrari will be strong. And I think they might cause a surprise or two. But in the race, when the actual points are scored, I just don't see how they'll be even in the top 4, say, quickest teams in the race, they might even struggle to get both cars in the points, which is quite embarrassing, especially if they ended up with a better qualifying result than they got in France. Will F1 says, if Hamilton is second in both Austria races and Max wins both, then Hamilton will be between 24 to 28 points behind Verstappen, depending on who gets fastest laps. Indeed. Now, if that does happen, I mean, yeah, 25 points, let's say, which is what you get for a race win. That would be, I wouldn't say a comfortable lead for Verstappen, because I still think a lot can go wrong with a lead like that. Just takes one retirement and Hamilton winning on that same day for it, to all go wrong and for it to all be back level. But it's I think going into the summer break, I think Verstappen, if he could have a 25 to 40 point lead, I think he'd be happy with that, considering how strong Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes have still been in the races this season, despite not having anywhere near as quick a car as they've had in 2019 or 2020. Let me find some other comments here before we get on to the rest of the teams. Josiah Boateng says, if Max wins both these races in Austria, I'll be extremely worried for how the season turns out, because I think the gap will be too big for Merc to close up, especially after the way Red Bull won in France. Well, that win in France, and I think I said it with Nib, that it was a statement victory, because we all were expecting, because of the way Mercedes had dominated the previous two races in France, we expected definitely Hamilton and Mercedes to win that Grand Prix, which again, like I said, they almost did, despite all the trials and tribulations of the Grand Prix weekend. Them not getting pole, Verstappen jumping them with an overcut or an undercut, sorry. It still almost happened, because that's how great of a race it was. But unless Mercedes can win with Lewis Hamilton a race that Verstappen, let's say, looks likely to win, and kind of gains the momentum in the title race and maybe gets all the momentum behind himself, then it is going to be Max Verstappen all the way. That's what Mercedes and Hamilton need to do, and that's what they've done in the last two title fights with another team, which of course was Ferrari in 2017 and 2018. The reason Mercedes were able to strike a vital blow against Ferrari and then reverse, say, the tide in their favour was because they started to win at races where Ferrari thought they were definitely going to win and where everybody thought they were the clear favourites to win. For example, in 2017, Hamilton winning in Singapore, where Ferrari were definitely quicker, but of course the start of the race happened and the rest is history. But, with Hamilton winning that, it was a clear turning point at that point that Ferrari were never really, I mean, they had the chance to, but it was such a big turning point. You felt that Ferrari were never really going to, reverse the tide then back into their favour that they had for the first half of the season. And then in 2018, you had Hockenheim, where Ferrari were quicker, but Mercedes still won with a 1-2. And then at Monza in 2018, Ferrari front row, home race, everybody, me, Nib, everyone thought Ferrari were going to win that race. And then Hamilton, with probably one of the best drives of his entire career, won the Grand Prix. And after that race, I remember at the time, I knew that Lewis Hamilton was going to win the championship, even though it was still kind of close between the two. I think there was still like 30 odd points or something between Hamilton and Vettel at that point. But I knew, because Hamilton was able to win a race where Vettel and Ferrari were expected to beat Hamilton, because Hamilton won it and Vettel had finished, I think, down in fourth, I knew that it was over from that point on. And that, from a Mercedes point of view, is what needs to happen this year. So if, let's say, Verstappen does win this weekend and Hamilton finishes second, and then Verstappen gets pole in the second Austrian race, and then is leading, and Hamilton is second. Let's say Verstappen then has an issue, a tyre failure, an engine failure, some kind of failure that means he retires from the Grand Prix or finishes, way lower down the order than he would normally, and then Lewis Hamilton goes on to win the race and possibly retake the lead of the championship, with then the next race being at Silverstone, which, by the way, it's just been announced, thankfully, it will be a capacity crowd, the British Grand Prix, which is in, 3 weeks from now, I believe? Yes, it is. About 3.5 weeks. If Hamilton was to then win the Austrian Grand Prix under the circumstances I just said, where Verstappen has a retirement, for example, and then Hamilton retakes the lead of the championship, then going into Silverstone, of course, Hamilton's home race, then maybe Lewis Hamilton wins that, it could prove to be a key moment in the title race. Or maybe it happens later in the season, where Hamilton wins, say, at Spa, where I think Red Bull and Verstappen definitely there are going to be very, very good. Maybe there, Hamilton gets a key victory and turns the tide in his favour and wins the title. We'll have to see. But again, like I said, he's going to have to do something similar to what he did against Vettel and Ferrari. The problem, like I've been saying for a few races now, is that despite Max Verstappen as a driver not being as experienced as Sebastian Vettel was at the time, Verstappen is driving better than Vettel was in 2017 and 2018. And I think, honestly, at any point of 2017 and 2018, Verstappen is really I think you could argue Verstappen is probably Hamilton's biggest rival in terms of pure speed. Because I know Rosberg, of course, very quick driver, had his fair share of pole positions, race wins, obviously won the World Championship in very unusual, I would say, circumstances. But I don't think there's been anybody who, with the cars being as equal as they are, I don't think there's been anyone, maybe since Fernando Alonso in 2007, when Hamilton was a rookie, I don't think there's been anyone who's been able to be this competitive, and again, equal-ish enough cars, pace-wise, with Lewis Hamilton on a consistent basis. I know people will say Rosberg, but when you go back and look at it, I don't think Rosberg was, pace-wise, as competitive as people think, especially in 2015. And really, I'd say since the back end of 2014 through to the end of 2015 and a few races in 2016, there were plenty of times where Lewis Hamilton was clearly faster than Nico Rosberg. And I think Rosberg definitely was a big challenge to Hamilton, but I don't think as big as Max Verstappen. And that's the harder thing, I guess, for him and Mercedes this time around compared to the opponents that Hamilton has had in the past, is that on pure speed, I think this is the biggest rival Hamilton has had in a long time, if ever, in Formula One. So if Lewis Hamilton wins the World Championship this year, it will be, I think, because Lewis Hamilton will have to drive at his absolute best, which honestly, in France, I thought he did drive at his absolute best, and I can't really fault him for anything in the French Grand Prix. Verstappen was, despite the mistake he made, Verstappen's speed was so great that he was just too good to beat in France. So I'll be honest, I cannot wait to see the final say few races of this season, especially when the pressure really gets on. And if it's still as close as it is in the title race between Verstappen and Hamilton, because it's going to be decided by some really fine margins. It really is. And it's going to be probably the closest title fight, definitely since Hamilton and Rosberg in 2016, without doubt. And I cannot wait to see what happens this season between the two. Anyway, let's get on to the rest of the teams. Aston Martin had, I guess, considering the layout of the track, you'd have to say they had the best Grand Prix, really, they could have had. Qualifying was okay, considering the circumstances. And then the race, 9th and 10th, Vettel was disappointed he didn't finish any higher because he felt if there had been a few more laps, he probably could have finished in 6th. Well, the answer to that is he should have been pitted earlier, and then he probably would have finished in, say, 6th or 7th place in the Grand Prix, because he definitely had the pace to do that. But here in Austria, a track that definitely will suit their car better, and as a team, when they've been racing point of force injury in the past, this has always been a good circuit for them. So I think without doubt, you're going to see this team right up there in the midfield this weekend. I think Sebastian Vettel, I think Sebastian Vettel definitely qualifies and finishes in the top 10. For Lance Stroll, I don't think qualifying will go so well, because if you look at his history of qualifying around the Red Bull Ring, it's not been that great, honestly, considering the cars he was in and the pace of the cars at the time. So I don't think Stroll's really going to have that great of a qualifying. We'll probably get knocked out in Q2, but I think definitely in the race, Lance Stroll will be very, very quick. And I have to say, Lance Stroll's race pace might be one of the best on the grid right now, maybe the best on the grid, because his performances in the last 3 or 4 races have been stunning, coming from quite low down in Monaco, or outside the top 10 in Monaco, and quite a bit away in terms of lap time. Or not lap time, but time on track away from the points. Went very long into the Grand Prix and finished in the top 8. Baku, he started at the back, would have finished in the points if it had not been for his flat tyre, and then same in France. But this time he did finish in the top 10. Lance Stroll, without doubt, a man to watch out for in the races. But I think Sebastian Vettel overall this weekend will be Aston Martin's highest placed driver. I think without doubt he will be finishing the points for the team this weekend. And if luck goes their way, could be another big points haul for them this weekend in Austria. For AlphaTauri, I think they're going to be very strong this weekend, because we've seen at the power dominant circuits this season, AlphaTauri have been at their best at those type of circuits, such as Bahrain, Baku as well. And Pierre Gasly, I'd say certainly at the moment, driving at his absolute best. His performances continue to amaze. P7 in France, even though he had very hot competition for his position from behind, and even was very close to getting a top 6 finish himself, as he was only 0.8 of a second, I think, behind Ricciardo at the end of the Grand Prix. So was very competitive, was Gasly in the Grand Prix. And then, of course, in Baku, got a podium. Monaco, you finish in the top 6 as well. So Gasly's driving at his best. AlphaTauri have definitely improved as a team on race day compared to what they were doing back in Bahrain, Imola, Portimao, Spain. So they've improved their race pace and their general production on a race day compared to what they were doing, which is very good. And I think Yuki Tsunoda especially has definitely improved his performance. So I do expect AlphaTauri to be quick this weekend. I think they'll probably have, in the race, probably the 4th best car out there. Maybe 5th if Aston Martin are very, very good. And I think definitely they'll be scoring points this weekend. Wouldn't be surprised if Pierre Gasly get a top 5 starting position for the Grand Prix. Hopefully Yuki Tsunoda will be up there as well, around a track where I believe he has raced at before. So you would hope that Yuki Tsunoda would be strong here. But definitely AlphaTauri are going to be very good. Maybe dark horses for the weekend, we'll have to see. For Alpine, very weird team are Alpine, because for example, Spain or Portugal, Spain, Monaco and France, at those Grand Prix where I think aero definitely more important, Alpine, given the strengths of this year's car, were understandably good there. But then in Baku, they were also strong there. And if you also look at their Sector 2 time at Paul Ricard, which is mostly about power, they were 5th and 8th out of the out of all the drivers in qualifying. So it's very hard to say really where Alpine are going to be this weekend. Esteban Ocon has a a good record, I would say, at the Red Bull Ring. I wouldn't say it's great because he's not done anything that I would necessarily call great in the races at the Red Bull Ring. He's had good races here, but I wouldn't say anything great. But for Fernando Alonso, it's not been a great track for him. I think he did finish in the points here in his last Grand Prix here in 2018, where he finished 8th from the pit lane, I believe, in the McLaren, which was a stunning result, I have to say. But before that, Fernando's never really had, stellar races around the Red Bull Ring. So it's very hard to say where Alpine are going to be. They're going to be in there, definitely fighting with, say, Aston Martin, AlphaTauri to a certain extent, but it's very hard to say where they'll be compared to the front 4 teams. So we'll just have to see, because I don't really know where they are at the moment going into this Grand Prix. So it is a case, literally, of just waiting and seeing how they do. Hopefully, with Fernando Alonso, who has, thankfully, improved his form, hopefully rather, he will be continuing that this weekend. Alfa Romeo, I think in the race, if we get some retirements like we normally do around the Red Bull Ring, I think maybe they could nick a point. But in qualifying, I just don't see really any real stunning performance coming from this team because they don't have the pace down the straights. Like I said, though, in the race, they probably can nick a point. Again, though, only if there's enough retirements. And then you've got Williams at the very back of the meaningful field. Of course, you've got Haas F1 at the very, very back, who I think will definitely be the slowest team this weekend. Maybe Mick Schumacher will get into Q2, but that will be more so him than it is the car or the team being that good. But I think Williams with George Russell, they really could be, again, if we get a few retirements like we normally do at the Red Bull Ring, this could be a great chance for him because historically he's been great here. He qualified, 12th at the Styrian Grand Prix last year in the wet and was almost, I think, in a points-paying position at the very start of that Grand Prix. So Russell in F1 has had, I would say, so far good memories. And then in F2, and I think F3 as well, he was very, very good here. In F2, I think he got pole position and a race win. So I think Russell, without doubt, is going to be very strong around the Red Bull Ring. This might actually be the first time he gets a Williams into Q3, which would be something. But given, again, how short the lap is and how quick he is and how much improved the Williams car has been over the last couple of years, it's a possibility. So we'll have to look out for that. And also, we'll see what Nicholas Latifi can do. But I think George Russell, without doubt, got to look out for him because he really could cause a massive surprise. And if he was to get into the top 10, you never know, could actually finish in the points because his race pace has started to improve quite a bit in the last few races, getting the best finish, not of his career, I don't believe, but getting definitely the best finish this season back in France, P12, which of course put Williams back into 9th in the Constructors' table. So that is, great news that Russell's race pace is starting to really improve because we have got used to, for quite a while, Russell putting in a great qualifying lap and then falling back in the race because the car simply, I don't think, can hang on tyres-wise during the Grand Prix. So hopefully he'll be up there in the race as well. But guys, that is your preview for this weekend's 2021 Styrian Grand Prix. And I think definitely this weekend and next weekend, like I said at the start, going to be a very exciting weekend. Now, before I get to the end of the stream here, just want to let you guys know what my schedule is going to be this weekend. So, on Saturday morning at 10:45 a.m. UK time, I will be live for the Practice 3 watch-along for the Styrian Grand Prix, and then live again at 1:30 p.m. UK time for the qualifying watch-along for the Styrian Grand Prix. Then on Sunday, I'll be live at 11 a.m. UK time / 3 hours before the race starts. Again, for a race preview going into the Grand Prix. Then I'll be live with Nib at 1:30 p.m. UK time for the race watch-along for, again, the 2021 Styrian Grand Prix. and then the race review at 7 p.m. UK time again for the Styrian Grand Prix. Those are the streams, those are the times, and again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell for that content coming your way this weekend, and of course next weekend for Austria, for the second race in Austria as well. But thank you guys for coming along to this stream as well. Don't forget to smash the like button. Don't forget to subscribe by doing it either on the bottom right of the screen or going to my channel page and doing it there, and hit the notifications bell. Again, smash the like button, share this video and channel everywhere you can. Comment down below what you think is going to happen at this weekend's Grand Prix. And as well, very importantly, don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description. That's the best place, that server, for notifications to my videos and streams. And also, we have almost 500 people on that server, and it'd be great to have you join our growing community. But guys, until the practice 3 watch along for the Styrian Grand Prix on Saturday morning, and for what is sure to be an exciting weekend, first weekend at the Red Bull Ring, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.